Pittsburgh is no result.
It's 800.
Welcome to the 3 Points and a Pie podcast, brought to you by the Pig and Pan Public House, Bermondsey. Sit back and listen to a few numpties chat all things football. Here's your hosts, Kyle Colson, Colby Stevens and Alfie Lauda.
Let's start our week off. Welcome to the inaugural episode. First we're going to hit with the Champions League matches of the week. So the biggest and best clubs in the world, and the best club in the world obviously showed they were with a 5-0 win over Sporting CP, Manchester City. What do we think about that?
The thing is, man, does City really need a striker? I mean, Pep has really put together a squad that is able to take people from your midfielder, Kevin De Bruyne, and he can literally control the midfield right from there. Then you have Phil Foden. You can move him around at the center attacking mid position, move him up to a forward, a winger, whatever it may be. I mean, is it really worth the money to spend it going forward with the results that you see like that?
No, I would definitely say so. Sorry, go ahead.
Especially recently, everyone was going on about the performance City are putting in, and then it was only like the Harry Kane performance recently where like question marks have come up, but everybody's got like a 5-minute memory. They've crushed teams all season. They do it week in, week out, and they don't need that Aguero. They don't need that Kane. I think if they did bring in a centre forward the way that they are playing, I think it would mess up his tactics. And I mean, Kane, the only way that I can see him fitting in there is to play like that, almost like a forward pivot, similar to what he does with Tottenham at the moment, where he has the three runners ahead of him. But I think it would cause City problems bringing in £100 million striker.
And I've definitely heard that just on some of the chats and stuff like that, where supporters are saying, them bringing in somebody who's going to want $500,000 a week to play is going to cause a rift, and they're just that alone. But then also, I mean, you have all these star-studded players, and they know they're the shit. They have to know. You put up 12 matches in a row with a W or a draw and no losses. I mean, that speaks for itself.
That was pretty much my only takeaway. I mean, I was really looking forward to that match. Even just seeing like the starting 11s, it's like, yeah, this is, even if there's no goals, it's going to be a hell of a game. And then Real Madrid turn up and play like Bolton.
Well, I really don't think of Ancelotti as like that kind of manager. I don't see him as a world football manager or like European football manager. I mean, I see him as somebody who can get you some wins in your, in your local league. But when it comes to those European Cup matches and stuff like that, I don't see him having the attack mind. Like, I mean, that's where I think Zidane was just miles better. But then,
yeah, I completely agree.
Shit happens.
I think with Ancelotti, the same as like it's almost like a school of thought with Italian managers where it's like it's defend first. But I just, Real Madrid away from home, I can't believe they didn't try wrapping that up. At least get themselves comfortable to go back to the Bernabeu. Because I mean, PSG, it weren't like they put up an amazing performance. It was shaky from both. It just, I don't know. Real were just really disappointing, and I think there is slowly been over the last couple of seasons, whereas like the Spanish teams were just so dominant in Europe. I think it's all shifting now.
Oh yeah, you can see that in the last four, or the top four teams in the last couple of years of the Champions League. How many of them have been English?
Right. Well, I mean, that also kind of leads me to a question. Does only having Benzema up front need to be addressed in the coming transfer, or was this the push that Real needs to go after Mbappe or another striker in the coming transfer window? I mean, it has to be the way that they performed in that match. It's you gotta be able to defend. Their defense was shit. Their backs were awful.
Yeah, it's an aging team as well. I mean,
that's what I was gonna say.
They're gonna be going big in the summer. The January transfer window was kind of quiet all around. I think pretty much all the teams in Europe, the big teams, they're all gonna be going big. I mean, like, where's Modric? What's he?
36.
Yeah, he's getting up there. I mean, Tony Cruz is up there.
Yeah.
I know Asensio is coming up to the end of his contract.
Yeah.
Benzema.
I mean, even Isco is one of the younger players, and he's 29. You know.
Yeah. I think there's going to be some major additions to the, and hopefully between like them and Barca, because they kind of traded off. Barca went the Galactico route, and Real Madrid started trying to build the homegrowns. And now the obviously the financial picture at Barcelona, they're going back to the academy a lot more. But I think Real Madrid will definitely be going big for a number of positions.
I think you're going to see is the same kind of model that you're seeing out of PSG, or we have been seeing out of PSG coming out of Barca. I mean, Barca's already starting to do it, but with Real too, where it's more of hitting the free agency rather than, you know, working these transfer funds, just finding people who are, because there are plenty of players out there who can fill roles and do a damn good job at it. They might be a little older, whatever, but they're damn talented players. I mean, think about half of the players that went to Asia or China or whatever league, you know, and like went because they were going to make 1.5 million a week or whatever. And now they're like, you know, I'm tired of this. Like Hulk is like 36 or something like that. And I bet he could still have a go.
He was a beast.
Yeah, right.
He was a hell of a beast. Yeah, it was a little sad to see, like, because I mean, I don't get to watch as much French football, but it was sad to see Messi. I think like we're now at we've gone through the autumn and now we're at the winter of his career. He's just on the field. He didn't look like he really give a shit to be there. I mean, the penalty that he took, there was just no belief in him. I don't know whether he's just there enjoying the sights now.
Yeah,
it was a completely
I think he's
different
totally
player.
checked out. I feel like he's checked out of there and he wants to go back to Barca. I mean, you're absolutely right. He looked like he just didn't want to fucking be there. Like there was no urgency out on the field at all.
I mean, you expect a little more from 30 yards out, you know.
I definitely put him back in the shop window. It's just I don't know, that instant reaction. I mean, you give Grealish till next season. He's learned his new role. He's learned the team, everything else. And I mean, no disrespect to Villa, but there's a massive step up between playing at Villa and playing at City. I'm sure that the tactical side, what his instructions are from Pep, are like so far above what he's encountered before, where that Villa is kind of like get the ball to Grealish and let him do what he wants to do. He's now having to play in an actual full functioning attack of 3 to 6 players. But I just, you instantly, as soon as the whistle was done, we wasted 100 million on Grealish. They can take Grealish and give him 100 million for Kane, and it's like, it's one fucking game. Like, you know,
there's so much of this need for instantaneous gratification. If it doesn't come, then, you know, there's the cancellation thing, the cancel culture that comes along with it. Like, dude, get a grip, man. Like, he's paid. He's staying here. You can sit there and rag about it all you want. It's not gonna make a fucking difference.
Yeah.
He's staying with our squad. He's playing with our squad. He's going to develop within our squad. He's going to be the player that Pep sees him that he's going to be. I see it. I think
he's still a young player.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think any real supporter or anybody who loves the game will see that he has evolved over the course of the season, from the time that he was put in the starting 11 up until now.
And from a purely like a selfish point of view, from an English point of view, this is probably like the first time in quite a long time where that starting 11 of England, they're getting coached by the elite managers in the world. So everyone is getting on the back of Grealish, getting on this, getting on that. It's like long term, Pep's going to turn him into a world beater.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
look at Phil. That's all I have to say is look at Phil. Everyone, granted with like Phil's U18 World Cup and all of those accolades that he had before he made it into first team, showed that there was the potential for him to do well in first team Premier League football. But those first peppering of starts didn't really give that much of an inkling that he was going to be this level of player. And a couple of years later, Pep slowed and made his process of entering into the team not so immediate, like say United would, and because of that, he's now ready whenever he's starting, and he's used to the power and strength that is more common in Premier League than in other leagues. And I just think that, yeah, exactly what you're saying. Grealish is going to grow. Grealish is going to take his already incredible skills and fit them into our team, and it's just going to be good eventually.
Exactly. Pep, I feel like Pep knows how to hone in and harness all of these different types of play styles, and he makes it fit his own. That's what I love about him. And it doesn't seem that it's just a City thing. He did it when he was with Barcelona. He did it when he was with Bayern. I love the way that he coaches, and I know there's a lot of haters out there, and I'm really thinking it's just because they don't have him as their gaffer. But you have to respect the man's genius to this game, and he's made it what we call the beautiful game for fucking reason. That's why we call it that.
Yeah, and he's taken the Premiership and almost modern football to a whole new level. I mean, more than a couple of seasons ago, when you guys were going through keepers left, right, and centre. He was trying to find a keeper that's good and good with his feet. That's why Joe Hart kind of
Immediately
kicked out and everything. Yeah, because he wanted
Claudio Bravo.
But if you look at what teams are recruiting now, every keeper needs to be good with his feet. Everyone plays out from the back. He's completely and utterly changed the landscape.
Well, and obviously 4-3-3 has been used for a really long time, but for a long time it wasn't as widespread in the Premier League. It's more so like Eredivisie or those kinds of leagues. And Pep basically brought that back, because before you were seeing more like 4-2-3-1s and stuff like that. And then it was like, well, okay, 4-3-3, that really, if you have the players, you can really make that work. And
well, you had that influence of Mourinho. Everyone started switching over to that kind of tactic, which there's no surprise that his brand of football, it is anti-football, whereas you've got the total football. His is anti-football. It's not what he does with the ball. It's what letting the other team do what they want to do, and then trying to force that early mistake and then counter. Whereas Pep and a lot of the managers before him, it's all about what they do on the pitch, not waiting for that kind of turnover. And for me, I completely admit that up until a couple of seasons ago, I used to get in a lot of arguments over Pep. To me, he was just a checkbook manager. He hit Barca just at the right time, hit Bayern just at the right time. But these last couple of years, he was seeing for the first time an actual total football team that actually wins. And I'm sure that a lot of the predecessors, Cruyff, I think, is looking down and he's actually applauding, because they smother and they attack in that whole wave.
Well, no, as far as the checkbook manager thing goes, as a City supporter, you hear that shit all day. But what really needs to be said about Pep is, for one thing, he was an assistant manager who was given the nod to be first team manager at Barca. That's kind of like Solskjaer, one of these like a legend being given the opportunity. Xavi now or whatever. And when he was given that opportunity, he fucking blew the socks off of the league. And you can say, oh, he had Messi, he had this player, blah, 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 blah. But he had to be a manager who could handle those kinds of players. And then he showed that he could. And from there, I mean, are you getting offered Newcastle or Lille or some shit? No, you're getting fucking offered Bayern. You're getting fucking offered City. So, like, of course, he's not going to be downgrading to a shitty clubs. No offense, but
No, but I think as well, and I mean, to me, he was just a checkbook manager. But this, and again, like these last couple of seasons, it's like he's taken what he learned in Bayern. It's like he's taken what he learned at Barca, and he's tweaked his ideals just enough to create this. I mean, because he did the short little passing. It didn't always work in EPL. The pace that everything was taken, you needed extremely intelligent players to be able to pull that off week in, week out. And watching City play, they still have the short little passing, but everything's with purpose. Everything shifts up in one and shifts back in one. And I mean, it really is. If I was explaining football to someone, it would be a City game that I'd have them watch for the first time, because I think it's a great advertisement for the sport.
And how clearly they play positionally. Like you like you're saying, you can literally watch, the circles.
Yeah.
Did anybody watch Phil Jackson through the 90s coaching the Bulls of the Lakers? It's exactly the same. It's the use of the geometric system. You're able to create these little triangles and boom, 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 and move system or fluidly.
Well, and your off-ball runs, forcing gaps and
exactly. And that's exactly what Phil Jackson did with the Chicago Bulls through the 90s and Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and them. So I mean, it's something that's already been done. And I'm not even taking away from the game of football on that, but I love the fact that, like you said, Alfie, you had to be smart to use this game, and I still feel like that applies here. And you have to be able to understand the spacing between and how to use that triangle that you're in. I mean, and even in their warm-ups, in any warm-ups, you always see them standing in a triangle and there's a guy in the middle. He's trying to get to his point. So it's amazing how that system works and how I think it will continue to work for years, even decades to come.
Even just the movement up front where one would drop off slightly to take a defender with him so that it opens up. I mean, it really is. It's an orchestra. Mm-hmm. I think the last couple of years have really kind of been his grand plan, and everyone getting on the back of like Grealish is what I'm saying about it. I think no matter how intelligent of a player you are, I think there's a big learning curve playing for one of Pep's teams where it's not just a case of hit and run. It's not just a case of, just let me on the pitch and I'll do something. He wants to know what you're going to do. He's going to tell you what to do. He's going to tell you for 90 minutes exactly where to be in every single situation. And I think that's
goddamn well better be there.
Yeah. I think the only one that probably gets a bit of a bias Phil Foden, I wouldn't mess with his mum. I would not tell that lad what to do.
Not after seeing that hook.
No, dude, that video was fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's no undoubting his skill. He's 21, and he's already got is it 100 odd games for you guys?
150 and 10 trophies.
Yeah, but there is absolutely no way that I'd be making the call to tell his mum that little Phil weren't playing that day.
Fuck no.
Like assistant coach.
You little cunt.
All right. So wrapping that up, next week we're going to be we'll have the Chelsea-Lille match, Villarreal-Juventus, which should be interesting. Benfica and Ajax, that actually could be a good biter. And then obviously Atletico and Man United, and I think we all know who's going to win that. And
here's fucking hoping. Goddamn fucking rags.
And they have the blue in the color. All right. So
3 Points and a Pie podcast, brought to you by the Pig and Pan Public House, Bermondsey.
This is Boris Johnson, hopefully still Prime Minister, and you are listening to the 3 Points and a Pie podcast. I fully endorse this show. I was told there would be a party. Could someone please tell me where the party is?
Moving on to the Premier League. First match of Saturday was actually a pretty good match. The West Ham Newcastle match, 1-1 draw, but that is not indicative of the match that was played. I mean, for one thing, I just want to say off the bat, I fucking love John Joe Shelby. I can't believe he's still playing in the fucking league, but like that bald head makes me happy every time I see him on the pitch. Keep doing it, man. It was a really aggressive match. Obviously both clubs, with the money that Newcastle's been putting in and with just what West Ham's been doing, are built for size, built for power, and it was on display. I didn't think that the passing between either club was particularly adept or sharp enough to really complete and make it more of like a 3-1, 3-2, and that's why it was a 1-1. Main things I was thinking about with that, there was that late challenge by Dan Burn on Bowen, and he only picked up the yellow on that, and frankly, I mean, he had no opportunity on the ball. I can see why you might be calling it yellow, but I mean, I don't know. It looked overly aggressive. It looked potentially threatening, and with the whole endangering thing that's in the league now, I think that does have to be factored in. And I think that more red cards need to be pulled for that, so that we're keeping our players safe. On that level, into just some fun things. I do think that we are going to be seeing an interesting transfer window coming out of West Ham, and not so much in their purchasing, like we will be again probably following in the summer with Newcastle. I think we'll be seeing selling. I think that we're going to see Jared Bowen potentially out. Obviously, he's had the Liverpool links, although I'm not quite as keen on him going there. And then obviously Declan Rice, like that guy is, I would say 85%, 90% consistent. And can you ask for more than that? I don't know.
Not really, not at all. And I mean, and he's been linked to a couple of different squads throughout the Premier League, potentially. I mean, I've seen bits from United wanting to take him. There was another one, can't think of it off the top of my head, but he's a fucking good center mid. He's a good center mid. He can definitely take a game where you don't have anything really going for you. He can turn it and flip it on its head for you. He's got to be in the right position. He's got to be in the right position.
His ability to run with the ball and make those line-breaking passes is, I mean, what else do you want?
Right.
You want somebody who's going to pull defenses on him or crack the defense. And
I also think with West Ham's size, I mean, that's the biggest advantage I feel like they have in all Premier League, and they are monsters. You put them up against any team, it's literally the Toon Squad versus the Monstars.
I mean, you have like Burnley,
it's ridiculous,
clubs like that out there.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it's just, definitely Burnley. But I mean, West Ham's, they're large, man. They are a large fucking squad. I would not want to be on a pitch with them. No, sir.
Antonio's a freaking
well,
monster.
that team is now kind of coming out of the light of, that's the way David Moyes, he loves big lads. Even going back to his Everton days, he's always built big teams that are dominant in the air. I think West Ham have one of the highest stats for goals scored from like set pieces or corners. I can't remember which one, but it definitely with his management style, aerial ability comes in massive. And I mean, to be honest with you, like Dan Burney was playing at Newcastle that game, but you can kind of see that's a Moyes defender there. Me personally, with the Newcastle game, I loved, for me, that was an old Newcastle performance. No one's head was down. And like when I first started getting into football, you had that great Newcastle team, Sprilla, Ginola, Alan Shearer and all that. People forget that they have had some fucking amazing teams in the past.
Greatest goal scorer of all time.
Yeah, and I think Eddie Howe, I know that he had his critics to begin with, but I think him moving Joe Linton back into midfield, I think that potentially is a massive problem solver, basically. As a striker, Joe Linton, I don't think he had the numbers. He just wasn't an EPL player. I think he'd only been there another season or so before he got moved on. But putting him back into midfield with the runs that he can make, if they get that connection up front, I don't know if like Chris Wood and that lot, whether they will be the kind of, whether they will still be there in a couple of years once Newcastle have had a couple of windows. But Joe Linton and Shelvey and Willock, that little three, they've got an amazing opportunity there to actually really create a shit up midfield.
Joe Linton, I like his. I really, because watching him run it reminds me of watching like Yaya run, that like kind of like gallop or whatever.
Yeah.
And I really agree. I think that I mean, you're basically putting an attacker a layer back so that you can add more attackers in that opportunity. And I mean, we'll see how it goes if this, massive influx of money is going to do for Newcastle. I mean, granted, it took years before, well, a couple of years anyway, before any silverware was brought into City with the money, but we'll see how long it takes for Newcastle.
I think, well, they've got right there in the EPL, they've got the two models. You've got the way that Chelsea did it, 15 odd years ago. You've got City a little bit more recently, and then you've got Everton. I mean, I know that Everton gets a lot of stick, but there is no doubting that guy has pumped money into that club, and without success. So it depends on which way Newcastle are going to go. I do think for them, it's going to be paramount who they get in the board and who actually decides the transfers themselves. I think if they do stick with Eddie Howe, I don't know whether they will, because he's not a world elite name manager. He's not a Conte. He's not a Pep. But if they listen to him, I don't think they'll bring egos into the club. I think they will bring players that will want to play for Newcastle. And that's going to be the first time that I think you can say that for a number of years. I think Newcastle's biggest problem was that they had a lot of players that really just didn't give a shit about the club. And it's sad to see, because they've got such a massive, massive following.
Yeah, but who the hell wants to train in Newcastle every day? That's all I'm saying.
But I mean, he's absolutely right. I mean, Newcastle really does have a massive following. I mean, there's a one dude from what's that fucking show, Oak Island on History Channel. He wears a Newcastle hat every fucking episode. So I mean, that to me just says, wow, there's a following in Canada. This guy's kind of fucking old, but excuse me for being the new guy, but like I just seeing that, I mean, that goes to that goes to show how far deeply rooted Newcastle's fan base actually is.
I mean, the sheer years were key for that, but I just think that it's. I think that Howe could be a great manager for him in the same way that you're saying, Alfie. Just that they need to buy into him. They need, I mean, because we've seen it in other sports. With the Rams, you have a young coach, and he's not that asshole fucking coach that we all know, and you buy into him more. Because, I mean, yeah, he's going to tell you when you do shitty or whatever, but he's not going to beat the shit out of you about it. And I get that feeling from Howe, and I think that, like, people are going to buy into him as, this is a new budding system. Let's, grow it together.
Right, especially if you're trying to focus on your youth. I mean, that's the only way that's how you're going to get to those players now, because doing that old school, beating you until you're fucking dead type of shit, that doesn't work with anybody anymore. I mean, how do you expect any player to be productive in a system if you just sit there and basically talk shit to them all the time?
Yeah, like young millennials and Gen Zs are not going to have that shit.
No.
All right,
take a page out of the Ted Lasso book.
Right? Yeah, see? Believe. Fucking believe. Be a goldfish.
Right, definitely be a goldfish. 10 seconds, man. So going into the Arsenal versus Brentford match, Arsenal controlled the shit out of that. 73% through the first half. I mean, their possession time was, their possession was up to 80% in the first half versus Brentford's 19. I mean, Brentford looked fucking lost. Brentford, get your shit together, guys. Where were you? Where were they?
I mean, for a newly promoted team.
I mean, yes, but I mean, I've seen other flashes from Brentford throughout the season. Yeah, Arsenal is fighting for that fourth spot on the table, but it just they look fucking lost, guys. I mean, and then going in the second half, I mean, you had they controlled basically everything going in, and Smith Rowe hitting his banger in so the 48th, and then Saka at the 79th. I mean, it took Brentford 90 minutes to get into the box and actually score.
And that is a pretty shit defense, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and there's shit defense. I just don't see any reason why Brentford couldn't have put up a little bit more on them. I mean, it just felt like they gave away the game all the way up until late.
Well, on that same level, you gotta, if other clubs can have a bad day, they can have a bad day too. And
absolutely, but when you're going up against somebody who's fighting for the number 4 spot, yes, you are a newly promoted team. But you're on the brink of relegation again. That's something.
They're like 14th or 15th, so they're still a couple spots off. And realistically, your first year promotion, I mean, yes, obviously you want to have mid-table or higher, or better than that if you can, but what are the odds? So if you can just stay in the Premier League after your first season, that's a friggin' win.
Well, and I mean, but even going forward with Arsenal, I mean,
because the Brentford at the beginning of the season, I mean, they were rocking.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you saw this team come out of Championship League, and they made their presence known at the beginning of the season, and that was one of the things that I took notice to this season. I was like, damn, this team's actually doing all right. And I mean, they've fallen off ever since, but I mean, just I feel like we're getting here late into the season, and you need to start making your presence a little bit more known. Yeah, they might be 14th, but I don't know. For Arsenal just played a really fucking good match. I mean, through and through.
Did you see that shit about Ivan Toney saying fuck Brentford though?
I didn't know.
What?
Yeah, it was like just a few weeks ago, something like that. Let me see.
Okay, gentlemen, we'll be right back after these messages.
Hello, this is Jamie Carragher, and you're listening to the 3 Points and a Pie podcast. There, you got your soundbite. Now, who is it? Oh, Kyle. Oh, stop stealing my garden gnomes. I know it's you. You're not fooling anyone with a Gary Neville mask. I mean, hell, I've had to buy like 5 now. I'm starting to get strange looks at the garden centre. Enough, guys. Oh, my God.
25-year-old said on Saturday morning his apologized after a video of him appearing to say fuck Brentford was published on social media. Brentford said they were investigating the video of their striker who was on holiday in Dubai during the winter break. The 25-year-old said on Saturday morning his language was unacceptable as he apologized to the club supporters. Friday night, Brentford said they were launching an investigation on the video, but Tony said he's already spoken to the manager to explain the circumstances and apologize for it. I'm aware the video was published on social media, and in it I used language that was unacceptable. The video was cut short and edited, but I have to accept the impact this has had, and I realize I shouldn't have put myself in that position.
I want to know what the fuck he edited out.
I know.
Like, what the fuck else did this guy say? Does somebody want to spill the tea, please?
I don't know. Maybe they had a really cheap, shitty cookies in like the canteen. He had to buy his own Coke from the machine. Well, maybe he does have more than half an eye on a transfer, or he's just trying to make himself a bit cheaper. Maybe he'll put himself into like Arsenal's budget.
Hey. Shots fired.
You're under 10, you're in.
You got to sort out your own transport, though.
Yeah.
All right, guys. What's up?
Yeah. So next match.
Moving on to Aston Villa versus Watford.
We're getting into that more midday matches. So one of the things I noticed off the bat, there was that penalty call on shout for Danny Ings, and at first glance, I was like, pen, get the fuck out of here. That's a fucking pen. And watched it. And I was like, that's a fucking, and then finally they showed another angle and it was like, Okay, maybe that's not a pin, but still, I mean, like, we need to get that on track, VAR. And given the moves that Villa has made for attacking options this season, Coutinho and all these players out there, it's got to be said that Watford played the fuck out of this game. Like, they held their shape. They kept a really, really pinpoint and whole. So I'm not going to cut that. Whole surgeon. I'm not going to say that one. But a pinpoint attack, and they held them back. Most of the shots that you were seeing from Villa were outside of the box, 20 yards out, and it's like if I'm a defender and I'm getting that as most of what's coming, we're doing a pretty good job. Obviously, it worked out in the end. Watford, got that insanely powerful header out of the end and took it, but it could have gone either way for most of it. I just think that Watford as a whole deserves that win, deserves the nod, especially for playing a team that is really trying to make moves and be more of a top table player.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that Watford pulled it out away, I mean, that says something too. I mean, Watford's a really good team this year. I believe that. But Aston Villa needed to have a better showing at home. You got to give your support, your fan base, your supporters something better to watch aside from getting a 1-0 beating from Watford.
I mean, going off like Villa, I mean, it was a pretty even game. I know Villa kind of edged out on possession, but I'm just looking up the stats for the game, and I mean, Aston Villa 1 shot on target, 20 attempts at goal.
Jesus.
So like over 90 minutes, especially with the players that Villa are putting out. I mean, those are some damning stats. And from Watford's perspective, I mean, they're getting the bubble. They got the new manager in, Ismaila Sarr and Emmanuel Dennis. They've come back from the African nations, so I think they're going to kind of start picking up points. Whereas as they go on, but Villa, I mean, those are some damning stats. And it's not like they're tight at the back. I know that a lot of people sing Tyrone Mings praises. Other people fucking hate him. Mings, Chambers. I don't think that it's a rock solid partnership at the back. So there is like that frailty there, especially with a quick player. I think there's always a yellow card in the Villa defense. And for the most part, a lot of the games that I've seen Villa play, I mean, they've played some beautiful football this season. Don't get me wrong. But I think they're kind of like, they're getting into that, we can outscore you. So, but on the days where like they've not got their shooting boots, they don't get the rub of the green, it's going to bite them on the arse. I mean, 20 attempts at goal and 1 on target, that's...
Versus a 50% ratio to Watford's 4-8.
Yeah.
I mean, that's... Guys, you're getting in the box. You're able to fucking get down there, and you're only able to put 1 shot on target.
I mean, I'm reiterating this though. It has to be said that like it's not a lack from Villa. It's a testament to Watford. I mean, 36 clearances from Watford. Like that's true. Like dogged defense.
Yeah, fair play.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, but then you also look at Villa, and they conceded 12 fouls. Versus Watford 7. I mean, that obviously, well, they see the yellow cards there. I mean, 1-2.
It's a pretty clean game, to be fair.
I mean, that is pretty clean. But I don't know. Like, Villa needs to do better at home. That's all I got to say about that. Villa needs to do better at home.
All right, and fuck Villa. Moving on.
So yeah, Brighton versus Burnley, This broke my heart a little bit because, I mean, I fucking love Brighton. I love Brighton all season. I think that their position in the table, it really doesn't do them justice. They've had so many draws that, for me, should have been wins. They've had a shit ton of just bad luck. But every game they do turn up, they play. Going off of where they are, there's no way. They should be a lot higher than they actually are.
Probably so. And I mean, even just with the scoreline for this match in particular, though, I mean, Burnley. I mean, let's talk about that. The fact that they brought in Wout Weghorst from Wolfsburg, and what he's done for that team already just in the couple of matches he's been here since the transfer window. What does that say?
I mean, I'll say like for the first half he played incredibly, but it was kind of like Brighton started to figure him out. And Alfie, on the Brighton level, I am totally with you. Like, I enjoy watching their football. I mean, you know, with Lamptey coming up from the back, you just like there is some real talent in that squad, and really defensively, the way they hold their shape, it's a good team to watch.
Yeah.
I just think it's just unlucky in some terms, and that's what swings her points on the table. But I think that as long as they can stay out of relegation, then I think that they can make some moves and stay mid-table at least for a couple seasons, and then maybe move from there, because they do have some quality players and some quality young players.
Yeah, the last couple of seasons, I mean, their recruitment's been fucking phenomenal. Lamptey, for me, if not this season, then definitely going forward, he's a top 4 right back. You put him on a secure back 3, just playing off that on the right wing back. I mean, Man United, if I was Man United, I would be shopping mainly at Brighton in the off season. I'd be picking up Lamptey, Mope. I think he would improve them. The level that they I love watching them play. I do. I think Graham Potter is done a wonderful job there, and I think unfortunately, I don't think he's fashionable enough for a top 4. But I mean, if I was Man United, I'd be looking at him.
That's interesting. I mean, and you can't take away from, you know, like Shane Duffy. Like, I mean, not only has he defended really well for him, but he's put in like a handful of goals for him too. Like, you know, and the move for Adam Lallana, I think, was a great move. I mean, yeah, he's a little older, but his creativity from that part of the pitch is a reason why Liverpool was in the argument a few seasons ago.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
and we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Joe. How you doing? I had to listen to 3 Points in a Pie podcast. 3 peas in a pod. I like cherry pie. Hey, Kyle Colson, Colby Stevens, and Alfie Lauda are the ones on this paper for me to say. Hey, that reminds me, I played a little soccer when I was a spring chicken. I had hairy legs, and the hairs used to poke through my shorts trying to reach the sun. You know how plants try to get closer to the sun to survive? Well, my hairy legs are like plants too.
All right, so we want to move into the next match, boys?
sure.
All right. I think Alfie, these are boys. It's Chelsea and Crystal Palace.
Yeah, this with Chelsea, they've slipped back to not knowing what Chelsea's going to turn up. I know at the beginning of the season, I mean, that they were putting out some fantastic performances, and people do forget that a lot of times this season, the vast majority of the midfield, the strikers, everyone they've been missing for different times. And I know everyone's making a big deal of the way that the attack's clicking, but to be honest with you, although we're over midpoint of the season, Tuchel has very rarely been able to call everyone what would be his starting 11. They've not had that much time to actually play together. I do admire him, the way that he has altered his tactics a little bit to deal with the losses that we've had. But I mean, Reece James and Ben Chilwell, those are critical components. We see it with Liverpool. Was it last season where Virgil van Dijk was gone for the season? A lot of their centre backs were gone, so like they're almost given a bye. You know what I mean? They're missing some important players. But if you look at the way Chelsea played and the way those overlapping runs, those two they're critical to the way that they steam opposition. So I don't know. It kind of breaks my heart at the moment watching Chelsea because it's almost like watching a lukewarm team. I know that Tuchel was kind of banging on about how they're tired from the playing and all this other stuff, but that's just a modern footballer's life. I think they used to travel. I know that he was saying about the plane had some AC, so his players had colds. But I mean, get over it. You know what I mean? You're a professional footballer. You're paid 150 grand a week. Like, suck it up. And again, this is like the biggest fear with being Chelsea and a Chelsea fan. You just don't know what Chelsea's going to turn up. Isn't it be a team that's going to go toe to toe to Liverpool, or is it a team that's going to struggle against Plymouth? You know.
What do you think about playing Pulisic more in the midfield instead of as a winger?
I see Pulisic. I loved him as a player. I think he's lost a lot of confidence, especially this season. I think it's going to take him a lot more time to get over the injuries that he's had, and I feel that he's one of those players that he needs an arm around him. He needs to feel important. I think he doesn't do well with being out on the sidelines because I mean he's got a tremendous pace on him, and I think if they could unlock Pulisic and Ziyech, and then just have them free falling behind Lukaku, whether Lukaku's still there at the end of the season or whether he's back to Italy, I don't know. But I think Pulisic, we're not going to see the best of Pulisic until next season, and then even then. I don't know if he's kind of is chanced out, whether he's one of the attackers that's kind of moved on. But if he does go somewhere, he will light it up. I mean, he's a tremendously talented footballer.
Absolutely. But I mean, going back to what you said, the piece about him needing an arm around him. I mean, that's any great player at any sport. You have to have that balls to the wall mentality of different. I get with injuries and stuff like that, how that can demoralize you a bit. But at the end of the day, you're coming into a squad like Chelsea, one of the most known clubs in all of the world. You have the chance to be a starter, not only for that team, but for your national team. You need to suck it up a little bit. Absolutely right.
I think you look at the difference between Ziyech. Ziyech has been out of the team. Pulisic has been out of the team, but Ziyech has what you've just described. He when you see him come on the pitch, he's fully aware that he had the biggest balls on the team. Even if he's only had 10 minutes, he's going to play like it. And
he's going to play like he's playing 90.
Yeah, exactly. And you need those players that because he can unlock a team with a pass. I think at the moment he's carrying the front. And I think he's getting frustrated because Lukaku and that. Lukaku, for me, he doesn't have a good football brain. I think he's kind of route one football, whereas Ziyech almost seems that he's a pass ahead of everyone. But again, seeing him play, he has the arrogance that you need. Hopefully, Tuchel kind of does what he needs to do before it's too late, because I would love to see him. I mean, if nothing else, I love that he's as important he is for America, and I think it's a great advertisement for Chelsea.
Yeah, but, absolutely, and more to add to him being a piece for the American team. I mean, we're seeing America become more and more of a bigger base for fans for European football. And he is definitely a vessel for us between him and Gio Reyna. Even Zach Steffen. He has, even though he's the number 2 goalie for City, he's bringing draw to the EPL.
He's playing under one of the best goalkeepers in the world. So.
And he's playing under the best goalkeeper in the fucking world.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Oh no. So I was just gonna say, like with Pulisic, like I really feel like you're seeing lackluster effort from Kai Havertz, and I think that would be good for both of them to swap in Pulisic up there for Havertz and let him play in that forward role. Because when he was playing up there, that was some of the scariest football, in my opinion, you guys were playing, because like when you have those two wingers that are I mean, they can cut in and hit tight angle shots. Like that's scary. And then so you force defenses in a certain way with that. And then you have, your big lumping ogre in the middle, and you can get to him if you need to.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think part of Chelsea's problem a little bit at the moment is it's a bit of an identity crisis. I don't think that that's out of choice. I think that's been necessity because of the injuries that they've sustained.
Yeah,
But
the Reece James and shit. That's
in general, there's they've struggled for a plan B basically, and they've got a couple of square holes and round pegs and all that. Because even with a fully fit starting 11, I don't know if Lukaku is going to be on the same page. I don't know whether he has a footballing brain for the EPL. I think the pace, it can kind of be a yard or two off of him. I think Italy, it suited him a lot better. It's a slightly slower game, so he has a bit more time to get that ball under control.
I think he has a bit of a Jamie Tart complex.
I think that he's just not able to control the ball well. Like some of the videos from when he played for United, just like that's all that keeps running in my head is like him slipping over a ball that was literally just right past to his feet, and it's like
fundamental shit. Fundamental shit, and you're fucking that up. Wow.
And I mean, like on the flip side of that, I do think Crystal Palace, I don't think that they deserve to. I think they deserve the draw. I think they played some good football. And I do think Vieira, I was doubtful when Vieira took over there, but he is moving them in the right direction. And I think with a bit more savvy recruitment, because I know that they are reliant on Conor Gallagher to a large degree. So when he comes back to Chelsea, they're going to there's a big hole that they're going to have to fill. But they are playing some decent football.
Would you say going into the summer transfer that Chelsea should be looking more for depth at this point, and that they should stick with the pieces they have, albeit if Romelu Lukaku does go back to Italy? I mean, do you think that there's still a few pieces that you need to fit into your starting 11, or is it just strictly you need to just load up in the back?
I think a big decision is going to be on who is actually there. I know that like with the contract situations of Rudiger, Christensen, and Aspi, I think that's going to be a big tell. For depth, I think with the talent that we've got coming back, Colwell, I think for me he's a Premier League player. Brozier coming back, it's just, are they coming back to replace or coming back for depth? If they're coming back to replace, then definitely they need to bring in some players. And I mean, I love a player that can play across the back, across the middle, across the front. Rather than bringing in like these specialists, someone that can only play right back or only play right wing back. I think the way that modern football is going, you are literally a jack of all trades. You can't be that specialist anymore.
No, you can't. I mean, look at João Cancelo.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you're basically describing that type of player. And honestly, it kind of being needed for every club. I mean, it's because of how the game has evolved.
Yeah. And I hate to say it, because I mean, and by the way, I'm not a City fan. I fucking hated City for a number of years. It's just, I've grudgingly accepted that Pep is a fucking awesome manager. And I mean, I wouldn't have him over for Thanksgiving. He's not Chelsea manager. But I would definitely have him over to, like rearrange the closets, give me some advice on what to do in the yard. But I think, and that's a big tell. That's where football's going. And that gets back to the whole total football thing. You're not a defender. You're not an attacker. You're a footballer. You attack, you defend.
Got to play two ways.
That's where it's going. And like you can see that at Man United with Wan-Bissaka, who for me is a traditional right back with the way that they want to play with the more attacking. He hasn't got an attacking foot on him. But for me, he's a decent defender. So these players, I think that if he wasn't at Man United, he's going to end up dropping down to a bottom half table team. And I think football's just, Pep has moved football on. He's totally evolved it. We've gone through a transformation.
Mm-hmm. You know, that was what we knew. That's all I ever knew, and the soccer wasn't even a big thing until I moved down here. But now seeing it here in 2021, 2022, from what I remember it being back when, you know, David Beckham was a big thing and Cristiano Ronaldo was young, and even Lionel Messi was when he first was coming into his own. It's changed tremendously, and it's definitely much more spectator friendly. You know, being able to sit there and watch an entire match 10 years ago, you couldn't have asked me to do it because I wouldn't have found anything fun about it. But like with the way Pep plays ball or has his players play ball, it's very easy for me to read up on that and say, oh my God, I understand it now. I mean, Kyle will tell you, I spent basically the entire summer playing FIFA just to learn the game and understand beyond.
I mean, but to be fair to that, 10 years ago, you would have struggled to be able to watch the match, period.
Exactly. But that was my point of saying that. That was absolutely my point of saying that. You know, the way that it is now, it's so much fun to watch. I mean, I got my kid into it. You know, he wanted to play American football. That was what he wanted to do. And we stuck him into a rec league academy in Maryland, and he was really good. He succeeded really, really well. And it was really easy because of the way that these coaches, even on the grassroots level, are helping kids understand the game. The safety that's going into it now, even granted, I think it's a little bit weak that they won't allow you to do a header until the age of 12.
Oh, your neck's not
bullshit. I get it. Skull development and your neck. I totally understand it, Kyle. I totally get it. But how did our heads get hard growing up, Kyle? Fucking running them into shit.
Just because it something happened to us that technically was traumatizing doesn't mean that we should do it to our youth.
Josh Barsani, I'm calling you out. Josh Barsani, I'm calling you out.
I do think Lampard's got his work cut out there.
No, he definitely does, and I think that's something that you're going to see transfer or transpire into the next season. I don't think him coming in as late as he did is going to really give them any kind of chance going in through the rest of the season. I mean, the highest they're going to get is a mid-table if they even put up any more W's this year. Those were both really good shots from Armstrong and Long. I mean, Southampton, they controlled the entire possession. I mean, it's Kyle.
I just feel like, I mean, you bring in like Dele Alli and like players like that, and he's not getting subbed on until like the last, quarter of the match or whatever. And I just feel like that's like, if you're going to bring in a player like that, I mean, I don't know, maybe there was something else going on that I don't know about, but I mean, who out of that midfield would you be starting over him? Like Iwobi? I mean, like Anthony Gordon, like who are like, I mean, I don't see these players being as effective. And I just think that's a missed opportunity. But I mean, Lance, I've seen, I mean, what I've seen from him tactically, from what he did with Chelsea and things like that. I mean, he has the ability to manage them and to do more with them than what he is. And I think that with some time and with more molding, again, if they stick with him, they very well could be more of a top 6 side, but I don't really think they're going to break any higher than that.
Well, and I think that I feel like they want to make Donny van de Beek more of a focal point of their entire system. Just from the things that I've seen over the past week, I see his name everywhere about Everton. So, I mean, do you build around somebody like him? I mean, is he really the player that they think he can be?
I mean, from what I've seen from him internationally, I would say so. But who knows? I mean, you spend so much time in a United, I don't even know if I would say like setup, just because of the way they play, that I feel like you're losing some of your your football IQ. But I don't know. I think that he was also a great addition, and like that there are some great opportunities in there for goal scoring. It's just it's going to take some time to get there.
Exactly.
I would love to know the thought process behind bringing in Van der Beek and Dele Alli, because I feel for me they kind of occupy the same space on the field. I don't know whether going forwards, the only way that I can kind of see them working efficiently is basically as like two roaming number 10s. But if you go that route, that Everton midfield, they've not got enough behind them to protect that back four.
No.
If they had like a Kante behind those two, just mopping up, just to keep that ball ticking over, I think that would completely transform it. So whether they'll go in big for a defensive midfielder, I think I've said it with a couple of different teams, but I think they got a bit of identity crisis. I'd love to know if Van der Beek and Dele Alli, because I know that Van der Beek come in on a loan. If he does, as you said, if he does stay there and they build a team around him, then that's got to be the path that they go. They need focal points. You need that spine, and I think that's been lacking out of Everton for a long time. I mean, I still don't understand why the hell they bought in Iwobi. I mean, I think they paid like 30 or 40 million for him.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a scattergun approach to recruitment. It just, the core's there. I just think whether they build on it and then they actually give the team an identity again, I think that's going to be the crux of the next couple of seasons for them. And I can honestly see if Van der Beek and Dele Alli, if they can get them playing together, I think they will destroy defenses. They've both got a hell of a pass on them. Dele Alli, I do feel, needs to refine his aggression. I think he became very passive the first couple of seasons he was at Tottenham. He was a beast in midfield. You know what I mean? He had the arrogance to be there.
Be scary.
Yeah, and I do think that they have a core there that they could really build. It's just what direction do they go in? Do they try and rebuild a whole team, or do they kind of like get their parts together and then go forwards there by making just a few smart additions? But I don't know if they're going to have the budget to do much. That's why I do think Lampard will be hitting up a few clubs for loans in the summer.
Well, and we can talk about like a center defensive mid, but the real conversation needs to be the back line, which is suspect as shit. And I mean, Jordan Bickford, I mean, like he had some good seasons a little while ago, but like if you look at the last couple, it's kind of like, are you really I mean, I might even be starting Begovic at this point, because I just don't feel like he's where he needs to be if you want a true starting Premier League goalkeeper.
He definitely doesn't instill confidence. And I mean, Seamus Coleman, he's got to be 35, 36.
700 years old.
Right.
And he's still in the starting 11 at this point. They should have a youngster there where Coleman's kind of like showing him what to do, not necessarily being their main guy.
Yeah. And Mason Holgate and Michael Keane, they need to step up their shit as well. I mean, you're both relatively young players, and you want to establish that back line, and you're holding the center. Be the person who does the damn job. I mean, you're not bad players, guys. You're not bad players at all. But I mean, I think that, yes, their defense is suspect. Absolutely.
But I mean, I did take my hat off to Southampton. They kind of looked like they were going to struggle beginning of the season. But I think he's got that team now all playing on the same wavelength. And I mean, Livramento, it was a great addition.
I mean, Kyle Walker-Peters, I mean, he's definitely showed up in the last couple of matches that I've seen him in, and can definitely he reminded me a little bit forget what match it was, but he reminded me a little bit of Kyle Walker. It might have been the match against City. Him being able to stretch the field from the right back position. I mean, he's definitely shown up a little bit. I mean, I'm very ignorant to his years past. I mean, but he's somebody that I could definitely look at and say, damn, he's going to be something.
Yeah, and I think if Tottenham had kept hold of him, I think he would be in that starting 11 now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And could you imagine putting him in that starting 11 against City just this past week? I mean,
Apparently they didn't need him.
apparently they didn't need him, but yeah. But I mean, could you just imagine the added effect? I mean, that would just. I think you would see me and Kyle sitting here in completely different forms talking about that if that was the case.
And also, I'm just a permanent Romeo hater, so I'm just gonna put that.
I mean, let's talk a little bit about Norwich. They have been a absolute shit show for most of the season. The way that Pukki played in this match against Liverpool, though, I mean, he kind of really brought them and made them shine. I mean, I don't remember those yellow shirts shining any brighter than I did the other night when they played against Liverpool. I mean, he just I mean, their backs, I feel like they held really well against Liverpool. Even mostly in the first, but definitely in the second, even though they scored most of their goals, which I think is completely contradictory for me to say, and I'm sure you guys are agreeing with me. But I mean, just on the Liverpool side, I mean, Luis Diaz, man, he came out and had a motherfucking game. I'm not sure if you guys caught any of it throughout the day, but he was everywhere. I couldn't between him and Mo Salah. I mean, they completely dominated the entire match. 69-30 possession. Liverpool had 29 shots, 8 on target versus Norwich. They only had 6-1. Beautiful fucking scissor kick by Mane, by the way. I don't know if you guys caught that one. Yeah, man. I mean, he had, between Mane's scissor goal and the wide open goal by Mo Salah, 66th minute, man. There was some pretty fucking awesome goals. It was a beautiful game all the way through.
I mean, what, like 2 goals in 4 minutes or something? So
yeah, actually, it was 2 goals in 2 minutes. So they had Mane's goal was at 64, and then Mo Salah's at 66, and then Luis Diaz scored the final goal at the 81st. But I mean, I really don't have a lot of words beyond that. I mean, it's Mo Salah and Luis Diaz. They completely and utterly dominated this game.
I mean, from what I've seen of Pukki from before they got relegated, was that 3 years ago? I mean, you know, they beat City in the first match of the season, and you know, they like Pukki has the ability. I mean, I think their first 5 run of games, he had like 7 goals in that season. Like it was something pretty impressive. And I mean, it's that tale of, you know, recently promoted and what the fuck are we going to do? And they're not fucking doing it. They're about to get relegated again.
Right.
I mean, with Pukki, I think the only reason that he is there to this day is out of loyalty to Norwich. I think last time they were in the Premiership, I'm sure that there would have been clubs in for him, because for me, he is an EPL standard striker. I think the only reason that he went back down with Norwich and then come back up with them is out of loyalty to that club. But it's pretty much cast guaranteed that they're going to be relegated again. It would just, at this point in his career, whether there would be a club that would come back into him, or whether he's going to go on to kind of like be a bit of just a Norwich legend, you know. But he does have a graceful way about him, and he is EPL standard for me, which can't be said for the rest of the Norwich team, unfortunately.
No, not at all. Not at all. Little something funny I saw, though, after a Virgil offside goal, Henderson was hit with his own ball by Virgil van Dijk. Did anybody catch that highlight? Because it was fucking hilarious watching Henderson ball to the ground. Sorry, dude, but you got hit in the fucking nuts. It was
not sorry.
Not sorry at all.
Liverpool supporters are always going to get down on their knees for Jordan Henderson, but let's be real. If you had a better player, he'd be playing.
Yep, and he was definitely getting on his knees for you guys.
Welcome to the 3 Points and a Pie podcast, Brought to you by the Pig and Pan Public House, Bermondsey.
Yeah, okay. So cruising on down. Okay, so yeah, City Tottenham. That was painful.
Extremely painful.
So that first 4-minute goal. I mean, as we know, we were talking about during the match. It takes a Ruben Diaz error. So check off a list of rare as shit things to happen. And then not so rare of a thing to happen. It took a basically perfect release from Kane to get Son out there. Great, perfect timed run from Son. And then, just basically sucking in Ederson, waiting for the support to come, setting it off, and, giving it to Kulusevski. And there we go. We're down 1-0. And, it was really depressing just to see a team that has the attacking ability that they have, that Tottenham has, playing that aforementioned Italian defensive first fucking football. It's just awful. It was like Mourinho was managing them again. Yeah. And it was just, it just put me in a bad headspace. I mean, obviously sour grapes in one way, but just, you want to see a club that's supposed to be a top 6 club playing like a top 6, playing like they're supposed to be there, instead of playing like Fulham in the FA Cup. That's the feel I got, is like they were in a cup match and they were striving to beat this Goliath instead of our peers, playing us. Then the second goal, what else can be said except for Harry Kane is an incredible striker. I mean, you take a half volley and literally off the bounce, that perfect half skip off the bounce and just right into the top bit. I mean, you can't ask for more. And cheers to them. Hats off to them. Hats off to Harry Kane. I think that they played a hell of a match. Kane also had that other attempt where Ederson came out on him and played a hell of a day of goalkeeping right there and got that left boot out. And thank God for that, because it could have been a lot more painful. Then ball goes down the other end, same 5 minutes or so, and our beloved Mr. Whippy pulls out that beautiful attempt. But then Hugo Lloris is just like, or Lloris dives out. And if there's a highlight reel of goalkeepers, that's on it. The guy is full stretch, full arm stretch, and still gets a solid hand on it, on a cracker. I mean, again, hats off. It was just a rough day for us and a great day for them. It took, I'm not going to say it took. It was a pristine performance from Son and Kane, and it needs to be acknowledged.
Absolutely.
But on that same token, there are some pointers, some points that I want to hit on, because for one thing, they were diving around like it was the fucking Summer Olympics and not winter. And I mean, you see then Anthony Taylor waving off these calls like, oh, get the fuck up. And, we were talking about this, but it needs to be addressed. And I don't know why it hasn't been, because I've seen it on multiple podcasts, multiple talk shows, where if you're going to say, well, that's not a foul, then if that guy's going down, he's diving, that's a yellow card, end of story, move on, give the guy a card, and maybe we'll see less of this shit. They're faking of injuries, diving, and time wasting. It was just,
felt like an NBA flop match. It
was just sad almost how well they won the game with their skill and then still had to play like that. I don't know. I just, it gave me a bad taste. Like I full respect to them for winning. We're not going to win them all, and they won well. But I do think that there were 2 handballs in the match that should have been penalties. So that's another thing. Yeah. And I mean, Romero, when the handball happened for the pin, maybe I'm missing the laws here. That's something that does happen, but that should be a card in my opinion. And I feel like they weren't soft on that just because he was just penalized and given the first card, and they didn't want to send him off. And fuck that shit. Send that motherfucker off. But
Yeah.
that's my shit.
I completely agree with you. I mean, everyone goes on about the quality of reffing and how they fuck up this or they fuck up that. And I mean, this is why we had VAR brought in, because of the amount of mistakes that refs were making. But at the same time as that, there's got to be an acknowledgement within football that if a player goes down and there's no contact, then it's a booking, it's simulation. We've stopped booking for simulation. And I think that there should be retrospective cards after the game. If it's not caught there and then, if it's caught after the game, then fuck it. Give them a post-game yellow, clock them up, and then they're going to get a red. It's going to stop only through the actual enforcement of the rules. Because, I mean, I don't particularly like many refs that are kind of Premier League level. I think that they do need to step up their game to a degree. But I do feel sorry for them. They've got 20 guys that are continually flopping over. And then it's always a case of, well, if they don't get the foul, then they just get up and it's like, oh, well, next time it may be. For 90 minutes, you've got that happening. There's got to be a repercussion, because there will be no changes, and they're having to go to VAR and everything else. If they go to VAR and there's no contact, then book the fucker there and then. If a team goes out with the knowledge that they're going to get booked, you're going to possibly lose your strikers, you're going to lose your midfielders for simulation, then it will stop. They will stop doing it. They're not going to put their own team at that much of a disadvantage. And in the same way as you've got like the cynical foul, you've got this kind of cynical simulation that just goes unpunished week after week. And it's not a good advertisement for the EPL. And unfortunately, there is going to be no changes until they actually start enforcing the rules that they've got there in front of them, and some of them are fucking absolutely ridiculous. No contact.
Yeah.
And then you're getting into the shadows of like concussion. If there's no contact and he goes down clutching his head, the ref has to stop the game. So you've got minutes that are going to be wasted.
And not
so
added.
if there's no touch, then book the fucker,
Yep.
Well, and I mean, what is VAR doing most of the time during the match? It's basically just sitting there watching the match. So why can't there be just like a running VAR like call of like Mike down to Anthony Taylor or whomever and say, hey, that was bullshit. Give him that yellow. Give him that simulation yellow. And just keep that train rolling, so that, because I'm not saying that City is innocent of it. I'm not saying pretty much any club is innocent of it. And we would all take our licks for it, but it would clean up the game and I mean, it's just wasting time. It's just wasting the match away for nothing.
And what action is it going to take for them to actually look at that a little bit harder and make that rule change, or not even make a rule change, but to enforce it harder? I mean, what does it have to? What's it going to take for them to start looking that harder? I mean, it has to be something.
Oh, the PIGMOL or whatever, the PGMOL. I mean, it's just going to take that, because every year they're, the new rule announcements or whatever, and it's just going to take them saying, as a group, this is something we're focusing on. And, as soon as they say that as a whole, and every ref is held accountable for actually administering that, then I think that we'll see a really drastic change. And
do you think
the first couple of weeks will be fucking tumultuous?
do you think that VAR or even UEFA, or not just UEFA but even FIFA, should start penalizing these referees for not making certain calls that could have had certain implications on the game, so that the way that they start making a little bit more of an attempt to be able to make those calls on the field, or allowing VAR to have a X amount of time limit to be able to make a decision on a call or a non-call, for them to be able to put that out there to the referee?
Well, so there are some, actually, I can't think of his name, but there's a referee right now who's on like a 3-match like suspension or something for just missed calls and shit. And it's that, you know, there are penalizations out there. It's really rare. Obviously you don't, it's, you know, like Alfie's saying, it's a hard job, and
yeah,
it's not everyone. I mean, yes, they get paid and shit like that, but not everyone wants to be in that, you know, I mean, at least it's not in like fucking Egypt where they're getting killed or whatever, but
truth. I mean, there is
South
choice
America,
to this.
but, yeah.
There is choice to this career option for these guys, but there has to come a point where this becomes too much, where it's taking away from the game. You're not giving minutes back to the game that should have been put back for, you know, them extending, whether it be somebody laying on the field or whatever it is. I mean, you see that with a lot of other sports where they take injury timeouts, they take these certain timeouts, they stop the game so that it can continue, and it be continuous.
I was just flicking back through a couple of stories as well. I remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but Man United back in the day used to be famous for surrounding the refs, trying to influence the decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the whole simulation, the whole thing, there's a little bit there where the ref it needs more respect. I know watching rugby, you see these huge fucking guys, and they are nothing but polite to that ref.
Mm-hmm.
And we had it recently again. I think it was actually Man United that were accused of influencing a decision. Do what they do in NFL, do what they do in rugby. Put a mic on the ref. If a player's running up to a ref and is calling them every cunt under the sun, if he knows that that's possibly going to get picked up and then face, you know, disciplinary procedures, etc., they need to put that bit more respect back into the game.
Absolutely.
And I think enforcing the rules that are there, moving forwards with today's technology. I mean, I don't understand why EPL refs and refs in general aren't mic'd up. I think if they can give an instant reason for a decision, it would stop a lot of games going into a bad nature, a bad temperament. And it would, I don't know. I know that if I was a manager, I had players that are crowding the ref. If there's the possibility that they're going to get picked up, because I know that a lot of people, they cover their mouths when they speak, but you never actually hear what's being said to a ref. You can kind of guess a lot of it with a bit of lip reading. But I just think that they need to kind of reset it all, and the game needs to move forwards with the technology that we've got available.
Absolutely. And there was one thing that I think we were talking about last night, guys. One of the things with VAR and the offside calling, there's got to be something built into these stadiums, that maybe like a rail system on, you know, just below the club level or whatnot, where it's going along, the camera is sliding along with that field judge that has the flag and is making sure that it's right there, so you can have a better angle as to what offsides is or is not. I think that could be included in with all of what we're talking about.
I just think that any of those crazy fine red and blue line ones, that just needs to go to the runner. Like,
yes,
it's too fine of a decision between the impact of the ball to the release of the ball to say that in that fraction of a second, this guy wasn't back here and not here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just think that needs to be the main. I think that the way that they have it right now is fine. It's just that in those situations where it's just too fucking fine, we should not be reversing a goal because this line is kind of right here because somebody decided that's the point where the ball is kicked. And it's like,
right. And I mean, and there's, again, VAR should be able to go in and literally magnify at the exact point where the toe touches the ball to be able to call that offside or not.
Yeah, talk to the technology developers. That's a bit of a stretch, but we'll see.
I mean, I feel like you could still see it, and it's not just with football. You can see it with American football. You can see it with hockey. I mean, they have hockey. They have all those fucking cameras that are built into the goalposts. Why? I mean, that could be something that could be done with football. I mean, granted, that's really only for looking at a goal, and I feel like there's already a good enough camera system that shows that.
Yeah, the goal line system is
the goal line system is pretty proficient. But when it comes to the offsiding and going back to the original topic, yeah, they need to do something a lot better about that.
With the City defeat, do you think that's going to have any kind of knock-on effects going ahead? You think it's going to give City a bit of a wobble, or you think it's just going to be a case of case closed?
I think it's a shake-up in the middle of the table more than anything.
I think it could have some repercussions, but I don't think it will. I think that City is the kind of club that, basically does. I mean, everybody says, "Oh, take it one match by match," blah 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 blah. But City is really like that. Like, okay, yeah, we lost, and for one thing, normally it's we lost. Now let's go fuck up that next person. For two, it's usually if we lose, it's like, okay, we lost. Okay, that was a game that we played. Next game. And I think that's the key to City's success is, like, for one thing, yes, bouncing back and having that drive that you don't always see in clubs. And for two, that truly game by game mentality where it's like, okay, yeah, that fucking sucked, but next.
And in all honesty, I think I would have rather have lost to Tottenham than to lost to a Southampton or a Norwich or any other lower teams, because that would have been a lot more demoralizing than going up against somebody who we were supposed to pick up in the summer transfer and it didn't happen. I mean, it was kind of, I felt almost like and then Kyle, you can agree with me on this or not, it felt like a proverbial fuck you from him, but
I
also all in the same. All in the same. And we've talked about that. We've talked about this just in our personal chats. I mean, there were mistakes there that were made by Ruben Diaz that just don't happen every week. I mean, that was you have to let that one slip off your shoulders. We're probably gonna reference Ted Lasso a lot in this segment, but you got to be a goldfish on that one, man.
Well, yeah, and and to be fair, it was a little lucky for Kulusevski because he megged Laporte, which is also not something that's all that doable. Right. It was, but going back to that, I don't think that it's anything other than a loss. Yep. I think that it lets Liverpool a little closer, but I don't think that it changes City's mentality whatsoever.
Not at all. And if anybody thinks that City's mortal after this, they're fucking wrong.
Well, City are. I mean, everyone loses, but
everyone loses, right? But I mean, it's just everybody, especially our own support base. I mean, they're sitting there and they're, what Alfie was saying earlier. They're going to sit there, they rag on our certain players and they do this, that, and the other because we lost or we didn't live up to their expectations. Dude, this is one match out of how many? I'll take that L. I'll take that L for Ted, and especially to them.
I mean, what, 26 matches played now, and that's 3 losses?
Yeah.
Okay. We still have...
What's up, Premier League?
We still have, I believe, the best goal differential, most goals scored, and least goals conceded. So it's not a bad season.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But yeah, okay. So on to what was a bit of a goal whopper. I mean, we have 5 goals out of that, and then 6 goals out of United and Leeds. Leeds came out hot. I feel like Alfie had that one.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds really shitty to say, but if you're kind of looking for a confidence booster, you want to play Leeds. I mean,
yeah,
for no other reason than that there's goals at the back there. And I mean, there was a couple of that goal. Is it Rafinha scored? That was a fucking amazing goal.
Yeah,
and they were a minute off too. We had Rodrigo and Rafinha.
But with Man United, I mean, this is a game that they should be winning. Leeds are not playing like they were last season. And I mean, with Leeds, you really don't even know what kind of formation they're going to take up. Beasley does some strange stuff. But this is a game Man United technically should have won comfortably. And I mean, I don't think that the scoreline quite reflected that. I think it does reflect the Leeds performance. Even with a win, for me, there's still a cloud over what they are. There's not that confidence there. Every game in, game out. I mean, Paul Pogba, arguably one of the biggest players. He shows up 1 in 5 games, 1 in 6 games. Fred, every time I watch Fred play, I still couldn't fucking tell you what he actually is. Because there's times when he'll do a really good interception. You think, fuck me, like, that's kind of Kante. And then he'll misplace like a 3-yard pass, or it'll bounce off his ass or his shin or something. And then like 20 minutes later, he pulls something else out of the hat. I don't know what Fred is. And him with McTominay. And without kind of harking back to the great Man United sides and all that, because I think in the one hand, we kind of beat them with that, you're not the team you were stick. And then we beat them with the other stick of, you should be better. But out of the top 6, does McTominay get in anyone's midfield? Out of the top 10?
No.
Fred, what team does he walk in? Harry Maguire, I mean, 80 fucking million. I mean, surely that's pound for pound just for his head. You got Luke Shaw. Again, that starting 11, how many of those are elite players? And I mean,
potentially.
But if you're playing academy, players just for the sake of saying we're United, we bring up our academy, and you're shit with them, what good is that?
Yeah.
Like, what are you accomplishing? And I mean, Fred, to be fair, City were looking at Fred, if I remember correctly, and that was another bullet that we dodged by United splashing more money than us. And yeah, Jesus Christ, Fred. I mean, those flashes of excellence are so few and far between that there's no chance he's making it into a City starting 11. Maybe second team, but even still, I think Fernandinho at 1 million years old is better than him. McTominay, no fucking chance. Luke Shaw, maybe for the British aspect, and because we need a left, but yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, Bruno Fernandes, I don't even think that he would make it in.
I think he would definitely be a second teamer.
Exactly.
I mean,
and not a club player.
If we're talking about him playing for City, yeah, definitely a second teamer. I don't. He wouldn't. I just don't. That midfield's too crowded for anybody, to be honest.
Jadon Sancho.
But
I mean, it's just there are players in Leeds that I would pick for our first or second team before I'd pick anyone from United.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is going to a conversation that we've had about them even just recently. I mean, Jadon Sancho is finally coming into his own, but the topic has always been, and it's always going to be until he's gone, is Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, what has he really brought to the team other than being a fucking crybaby? He seems like he's a cancer in the locker room, and he's just taking up money for them, and they could have been using it somewhere else.
I think that the worst thing that they did was bring him back. I think I mean, it completely stifled for me the youth that they did have there.
Yeah,
the confidence was blown out of it. And why the hell that they the winger Amad Diallo, why the hell they let him go out on loan when you're struggling for a cohesive unit? I mean, I think you put Jadon Sancho to one side, you put Diallo on the other wing. They're going to inject pace. They're going to have no one at Man United now plays for the badge. They're all playing for their Instagram account and their Facebook account and everything else. The belief has just gone. No one gives a shit. And I mean,
the only player I think in that whole group that does still play for the badge is De Gea.
Yeah. And I mean, how many seasons in a row was he like the number one player? And I think like for a team as big as United, for De Gea to still be saving their ass, I think it's outrageous. And again, you've got Ralph Rangnick that's come in. I don't know what he's gonna do. I don't think he's a good fit. Going off of, because I mean everyone can say anything that they want, but going off of performances, I don't think the team has really bought into what he's doing.
No, not at all.
And if a new manager comes in, for me, an elite manager takes what he's got and improves them. They don't instantly go out and buy. They don't want to do this. They don't want that. He should have that. There's enough quality there to grind out results.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. An interim manager, what is his job? Is he going to bring in someone that is kind of going to replicate him? If so, then you can see Man United, they're going to go out and they're going to blow another 400 million on probably something that in 2 or 3 years time, we're going to sit here and say the same fucking thing.
I mean, as it's always said, form is temporary and, ebbs and flows and all that, but a 10-year fucking, that's a bit of a valley. I do want to say, like, as much as shitting on Fred and Sancho is like part of my repertoire, Sancho did have a great game. Fred surprisingly had a great game. I don't remember how to pronounce it. Alanga. He obviously
Alanga,
had, but it's just, beating up on Leeds, cool,
Yeah, it doesn't really feel like much.
Well, you just know that there's goals in them. I mean, the City put 7 past them.
Mm-hmm.
You know that there's goals in the back. They should technically make Man United's front 3 look good. Because it doesn't take that much effort, because Leeds just haven't got that. I mean, I remember watching Leeds v Chelsea and they scared the shit out of us. The intensity that they played with it's gone. I don't know what has gone wrong at Leeds, but they're a shadow of the side that they were. And what you're saying about Fred, that's the thing that I don't get. He can do an amazing little touch or amazing little pass, an amazing interception. I've seen him create goals and then do something that's absolutely fucking ridiculous. But you shouldn't be getting that out of a top 4 elite midfielder. And again, going back to the fucking glory days, I'm sure if Roy Keane was playing next to him, he would be beating the shit out of him for like 90 minutes on his back. So I don't know whether it's a communication thing with him. I don't know what that is missing now. But because he'll do something fucking absolutely amazing. And then something that's just ridiculous. I mean, you could feel like a YouTube show just out of like kind of like the best and the worst of the same fucking player.
Also, I would like to say that Wesley Amelia, the keeper, that guy's had a good season. Showed up, he did have that stop against Ronaldo in the match. Like, he's, as much as yes, there are goals in him, he's done all he can to avoid them. But when Stuart Dallas is in and out of the side, and things like that, it's tough for it's tough for a club without the depth, who are relying on that 11 to then continue to keep that form.
One of the things that you had said too is how Leeds moves their formations around. And I'm looking at it here, and it just looks like they, in this particular match, they're trying to mirror United, and they're running a 4-2-3-1. I mean, what would be the purpose of somebody of a squad knowing that they're not quite to the caliber of the other or the opposing team? Why would you try to mirror them, thinking that that's going to dismember their formation or be able to break through their lines? To me, it doesn't make any sense from a coaching standpoint.
I mean, if you're clogging up the midfield and hoping that that's what's going to be the break, then I can see it. But
yeah,
I mean, when you basically are only putting Rodrigo out there front, like it's just not enough to get that break out.
It's not, and especially with when they're basically running from what it looks here. They were running 5 midfielders. You have Jesse Lingard, Paul Pogba, Jadon Sancho all out there at once. To say all those names out there in one sounds scary, but we all know that that's not the case at this point in the season. It should strike a little bit of fear in your eyes, and it just doesn't. But I mean, that's beside the point of what I was saying. The fact that Leeds was trying to basically mirror them, thinking that was going to derail them. I just don't see the point in that. Yes, I see the clogging up the mid, but they definitely need to figure out their identity. I mean, I feel like both squads are in that frame. Going forward for United, you have so many players that are on this squad that are almost near household names across the entire world, and they're sitting 4th, 5th. I think it's pretty fucking awful.
And I think it was after Brighton. Was it Brighton, Man United? But and again, it could be lost in translation. But for a manager of Man United to be celebrating that they ended up playing against a 10-man team, you're celebrating a red card. It should never come to that.
No,
ever.
No, and the fact that you have to bank on a win for that, you have to bank on a win for a red card. You're the opposing team's down 10, so you need one less player for you to win. You know how stupid you fucking sound.
It happens though.
I
think the main thing with United is their captaincy issue. Ronaldo's too pouty to be a leader. Maguire is just not a fucking leader.
No.
And I think the only one consistently bitching and trying to keep doing stuff is Fernandez. And I don't even know if he could really be like a legit captain. And I think that you need that. You need somebody on the pitch to do what the manager can't be doing. Yeah. And they don't have that.
Guerrero is the only one that seems like he really wants to fucking be there, to be honest. I just read an article earlier about how he feels like Manchester's home now. Yeah.
He's been there fucking ever. But...
Well, I know, but if we're going off the whole captain subject, I feel like he would probably be the best fit because his mind is on the pitch.
And he does get the captaincy sometimes, but it's still I don't like a keeper as a captain because of the disconnect you're having from on-field players most of the time.
I mean, being that far away from the center backs and stuff like that, you're not really able to have any kind of conversations. Whereas, if you're somebody who, and I feel like more typically you find your captains or your midfielders because they're able to communicate with both the backfield and the forwards.
Fucking sack up.
They do, but they don't.
All right,
because they're a bunch of fucking rags. So fuck them.
Good win, United, but.
And we'll be right back in just a minute.
Hello, my name is Rio Ferdinand. You may know me from my playing career or my punditry work, but today I would like you to come on a journey with me on my new show. So, get comfortable and let's go deep with Rio. Today, I would like to talk about an ancient Greek philosopher called Heraclitus, who for me is the father of the paradox. Let's explore deeper the unity of opposites, man, and its part in the central category of dialectics, said to be the notion of non-duality in a deep sense. It defines a situation in which the existence or identity of a thing or situation depends on the coexistence of at least two conditions which are opposite to each other, yet dependent on each other and presupposing each other within a field of tension. So, to quote the old man himself, the way up and the way down is one and the same. Cold things become warm, and what is warm cools, and what is wet dries, and the parched is wettened. And my particular favourite, the death of fire is the birth of air, and the death of air is the birth of water. Let's just take a few moments to deeply breathe and allow this perspective to fully absorb. Don't that feel better, man? Thank you all for coming on this journey with me on the 3 Points and a Pie podcast. Come back next week and let's go deep with Rio.
Go suck a fat one. And on to
Wolves versus Leicester.
Gotta say, I was really surprised by that turnout. Watch it.
I think with Wolves, Leicester, I mean, Wolves for me they're the dark horses for fourth spot.
Yeah.
I do think that team has got it in them to finish fourth, and they would do it by deserving it rather than default, which at the moment you can kind of say about like Man United, West Ham, Arsenal to a degree. It's a case of who doesn't fuck up the most is going to get fourth. Whereas Wolves, if they do get it, they're going to do it by actually earning it.
Right.
I think this game was a big audition or a nail in the coffin. I don't know which way you want to look at it, for Rodgers and Rodgers at Man United. I think each team kind of goes through like a 3 to 5 year cycle. Players, manager, you have the peak, the drop. I think Rodgers is done at Leicester. I think they've gone as far as they can, both as a team for him and him as a manager for them. His name just isn't linked like it was to the elite jobs anymore. But again, it's almost the case of a flip side. You had Wolves a couple of seasons ago that were kind of struggling. Leicester were in the ascendants. They just narrowly missed out on top four a couple of times. And I think this is going to be a case of Leicester now just dropping down a little bit. I do like Patson Daka. I think he would do an amazing job at someone like Arsenal or even Newcastle, playing that kind of front pickpocket role. Our players going to start looking now Leicester as just a stepping stone, and it's a shame.
Well, I mean, Tielemans is probably pretty much on the way out for everything I'm seeing.
Same.
I don't really see a lot of players that might jump. I think Mark Albrighton's shit, but that's beside the point. Like I probably would have actually started Iheanacho in there with those three, especially given the Nigerian connection of Lookman and Iheanacho. But and I'm just again biased to Iheanacho, but I don't know. I completely agree about Rodgers. I wasn't in on Rodgers when we took the lead from Liverpool. But yeah, like back then, like you saw at the end of the season, you just saw he had not built a team made to eke out to finish out a league win. Yeah. And that's why like these people that are like, oh, City can't win Champions League. And I'm sorry to jump to City again, but I'm just going to. City can't win Champions League, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but this is potentially the fourth Premier League in 5 years. And if you ask me, and probably realistically most people, if they're being honest, it's a lot harder to win the Premier League than, I mean, it's, you got to say, like, cup matches have a sense of luck to them.
Yeah.
And
especially FAs.
Yeah, well, I mean, any of it, Champions League, like, any of it, like you can just have a fuck up day and you're out. Whereas with the Premier League, you have to go in fucking all fucking season and win enough. And especially with, some of this competition out there where Liverpool go all the way almost to 100 points with us and are only lose by 1 point. Like that's a crazy fucking year. Yeah. And to win out with that, like that, I'm just tired of the Champions League talk. Sorry, that was my tangent. But I just want to say that I really do like the way that the Wolves play. I just don't think, I don't know. There's just something not always connecting with them, and they need that to be firing perfectly for them to really beat a top tier team.
Yeah. So, I mean, going into the conversation about Leicester, though, with their coach, I mean, going into next season, do you think that they end up sacking him and bringing in somebody new? And if so, who do you think they bring in?
I think that is a tough question, because I think it's almost like the same 8 or 10 managers, just kind of like every couple of seasons, it's like musical chairs. Everyone just hops one to the right.
Mm-hmm.
I think with Leicester, I think they're on a downward trajectory. I think come the summer, I mean, there's a couple of players there that I think would actually do really well at Man United. In Diddy, I think you put him next to Fred. I think it would make Fred actually start thinking more, and it would put a bit of bite to their midfield. Even was it Amati? I mean, he could replace either Well, to be honest with you, he probably adds up to like Maguire's head and Lindelof. So I think he's going to shore up the back. But I think that the summer is going to be massive for Leicester. Who they keep hold of rather than who do they bring in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a tough question because you don't know who. Is it going to be a case? Basically, is it going to be a case of Rodgers leaves, or does he get fired?
I mean, where they stand on the table at the end of the season, I feel like is going to determine that, because I mean, for as long as I've ever seen or looked at a table through my life, like ESPN or whatever, I mean, Leicester has always been near the top, if not the top team, growing up in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s. It's a team that you constantly saw. I mean, do you want to get back to winning ways? Are they going to make those steps to become that team again? Or are they, like you said, are they going to sit here and fall off for a little while and just become that stepping stone?
Yeah, and I think as well, like there is a core there that another manager will get a tune out of.
Mm-hmm.
I do really like Daka. I think he's got a hell of a future ahead of him. I think he's got all the requirements needed to be that forward. And I do think that he is Vardy's direct heir.
Mm-hmm.
I guess going off what you're saying, I think Rodgers has done enough to buy himself time. I just don't know whether they're going to get into like a divorce stage, but they just don't really want to see each other anymore. Maybe do some shitty texts. Fight over seeing
passive aggressive messages.
Yeah.
A guy who has his credentials for managing but hasn't really landed anywhere, which does also kind of surprise me. And given his knowledge of the game, and the style of football that he's played in his career, I think that he could actually be a really good fit for them. Francesco Tati.
Okay.
And I mean, he's just coming out of Roma like the last 4 years, something like that, and he hasn't really done shit, but he finished up his credentials apparently. And I think that would be, I mean, for one thing, just the name alone brings in some fucking extra viewers and then some extra money. But for two, I really do think that he could be another one of these player managers that are just like you know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, he was a fucking amazing player.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would, as you said, it would put a luster back on Leicester. Luster on Leicester.
Yeah.
Sell that. It just it needs freshening up. Yeah. But I could see that working.
I mean, honestly, I could see him going to a couple different places. Really, I just don't. I don't know if they're really looking at him like that. But who knows?
All right, gents. Well, I believe we are officially at the end of this week's match lineup. Do we want to go into what's coming up next week and kind of go over what matches are coming up, and maybe do some picks or any ideas here?
Yeah, I mean, this week you got the Arsenal Wolves. I think that's going to be a hell of a game, and I think that's going to be a great indicator on where both of those teams are at.
Absolutely.
I do feel with Arsenal, they still lack a bite. I don't know whether they just don't believe in themselves enough. And I've heard it for so many fucking years where Arsenal are a young team. They're not young. They're not a young team anymore. You've got a couple of young players, Emil Smith Rowe. But to be honest with you, their academy players are by far outperforming their regular standard, what would be their standard 11. If I was going to pick between Arsenal and Wolves, I think Wolves have got a bit more of a bite to get fourth. I think Arsenal are still fallible, and I do think that they possibly will drop off again.
I
Yeah.
definitely think they're fallible.
And then the first 4 matches that we're talking about today, they're all 4 of those teams, I believe, are on short weeks. So Burnley versus Tottenham, Watford versus Crystal Palace, Liverpool versus Leeds, and then Arsenal versus Wolves. I mean, then beyond that, we got Friday, Southampton versus Norwich. One day. Brentford, Newcastle, Leeds, Spurs, Brighton versus Aston Villa, Crystal Palace versus Burnley, United versus Watford, and Everton versus City. And then the Sunday match is West Ham versus Wolves. Then final match of the week would be Burnley versus Leicester.
But yeah, so we got some good matches coming up. I think that City will smash Everton. I hope that Leeds actually come up and do something, although it's doubtful. Because fuck Liverpool. But
yeah, that West Ham Wolves match is going to be a lot of fun to watch. A lot of fun.
It's actually nice. You get the full week off for the final, and they have the midweek match, so that should actually work out in your favor.
That Burnley Spurs, I put 20 quid that either finishes a draw or Burnley 1-0.
God, let's hope that you fucking get that 20 quid back, dude.
I'm telling you. That there is set up purely for Spurs. Like, beat City, lose to Burnley.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
It's the Spurs way.
I hope fucking Bakehurst fucking dunks one from outside the box. Just for shit.
I really do think that he was a great move.
Dude.
Like he's not an elite forward, but he is just elite enough to be great for them.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I mean, between his height and just how fucking well he can kick the ball alone, but like, let's all talk about the fact that he is literally a sloth. All right, gentlemen. Well, this has been a great first episode, and we look forward to doing it next week and getting it out to all of our viewers. Thank you guys for coming with us today and listening to our bullshit.
Yeah, thanks for listening to us fucking talk about shit, and hopefully you liked it. If so, yeah, catch us every Wednesday and 3 Points to Pie in a podcast, baby.
3 Points and a Pie podcast, brought to you by the Pig and Pan Public House, Bermondsey.